So today, he will be showing us the way through the 5 dreams of the Aurobindo. Ladies and gentlemen, I have great pleasure in presenting you our respected and most revered Dr. Karan Singh ji.
Thank you, Raji, Radhani ji, Professor Rao, and distinguished members of the audience for the very generous introductions and welcome. This annual feature has become something which I am also beginning to enjoy because I find it really very stimulating and interesting to see how from sort of what do we call green field, what is nothing there, the university has suddenly grown and steadily grown over the last 9 years. The campus has come up, the area has become green, the number of students has increased, and I've been very impressed by the way in which you have creatively worked on your 4 core principles, particularly the one about seamlessness, because holistic education, I think, is the key to the future. The compartmentalized education that we've had so far has been okay, but now it's not enough. Now that knowledge is exploding, we need to have the capacity to integrate various strands, whether they are social sciences, whether they are the so-called hard sciences. They have to be integrated into some kind of coherent philosophy. Because we are living in an age of great transition and turmoil, where everything seems to be breaking down, if you look at it from one point of view. And therefore young people, like the students of NIIT, are the ones who are going to finally put things together. And in order to have the capacity to put things together, we have to have a holistic approach. So as I said, I'm very impressed. Rajesh has pointed out his new idea of building bridges to schools, so that the students can, as it were, come in to the whole ambit of NIIT even before they actually join it. I think it's a very creative idea. I was also interested to read that you introduced artificial intelligence as one of the new areas. Now that is something which it sounds fascinating for a layman like me, because on the one hand, you have somebody like Stephen Hawking, or that other great inventor, what is his name? Musk, Elon Musk, who have said that artificial intelligence represents an existential threat to the human race. I mean, if a man like Hawking says that, or Musk says that, surely it must mean something. And yet we are going steadily towards creating more and more intelligent computers. Will we finally be able to create self-conscious beings? That is my philosophical question. Will we finally be able to create someone who is self-conscious? And what will be the impact of that? So this is an absolutely fascinating area, and I find that wherever I go now, IT or TI rather, is beginning to become significant. So I'm very glad you brought that into your curriculum, and I'm particularly happy at the greening of the campus. I must congratulate Kamal and his team, the way they've brought up the campus, because environmental destruction is an existential threat to the human race, apart from artificial intelligence. And deforestation and desertification is a sure sign of that. So any greening anywhere is to be welcome. And particularly what you have done on this campus, which was really barren when I first came here 9 years ago. And I also love the speaking tree, not the speaking tree, the listening tree. It is a lovely tree. I'd love to sit there one day and listen to what people have to say. It's a little amphitheater. However, now, before I come to my topic of the 5 dreams of Sri Aurobindo, I need to introduce Sri Aurobindo to particularly the younger members of the audience, who may not have the faintest idea who he is, unless they looked him up in Wikipedia or whatever. And for that we have to go back a little into history. In 1957, the what we call the First War of Independence, the British called the Indian Mutiny, was brutally crushed by the British. It was crushed in a very, very brutal manner. And India lay prostrate and broken in spirit and mind after that. But Indian civilization has this extraordinary capacity of regeneration. Our whole history, if you look at it from the time of the Vedas down to the present day, has been a constant series of challenge and response. The Upanishads were there, then there came the challenge of Jainism and Buddhism, then the South Indian Acharyas came, then there was the challenge of the Muslim invasion, the Bhakti Andolan. One can go on, and one can analyze Indian history as a series of challenges and responses. Even this time, what happened after that was within 30 or 40 years of that disaster, something began which collectively is now known as the Indian Renaissance. Indian Renaissance is a term that is used for the revival of India after the defeat in the First War of Independence. It had three strands, very briefly. It had spiritual renewal. And there the key figure was Sri Ramakrishna. So Sri Ramakrishna was a spiritual genius. And he attracted to himself some of the brightest young men in Bengal and Calcutta at that time. And he became a powerhouse of light and inspiration. And that team of young men, led by Narendranath Datta, who later became famous as Swami Vivekananda, they were the ones, as it were, who began the spiritual regeneration. And Vivekananda, as you know, took the message of India across the seven seas, as it were, all the way to Chicago, where in 1893 his address to the Parliament of World Religions became a landmark in the history of interfaith movement. So that was one stream, the spiritual renewal. The second stream was social reform movements. Many thinkers realized that the reason India was crushed was because we had an iniquitous social system. The whole stratification of our society into caste and jati and creed and all had destroyed our vitality. So social reform movements began around the country. And there the key figure is Raja Ram Mohan Roy. If you look up your history, you'll find Raja Ram Mohan Roy, again in Bengal. Perhaps because Bengal was the first province to feel the British impact. Therefore, the regeneration also began from there. And the Bengalis are very talented people. So there, Raja Ram Mohan Roy began the Brahma Samaj, Devendranath Thakur, the Brahma Samaj of India, Keshav Chandra Sen began his own movement, Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar began the widows' remarriage, So there was this social movement. In Maharashtra, it was Bhandarkar and Ranade who began it. In North India, it was Swami Dayanand Saraswati. So around the country, social reform movements began, which attacked the worst features of Hindu society at that time. They attacked the whole caste system, they attacked the way women were trying to be subjugated. That was a very major movement, a major strand in our regeneration, which continues down to the present day. The third stream, we have the spiritual regeneration, Sri Ramakrishna, we have the social reform movement, Raja Ram Mohan Roy, and we have the political awakening. And the political awakening began with the founding of the Indian National Congress in 1885 by Allan Octavian Hume. An Englishman, a group of Englishmen, founded the Indian National Congress, which was destined to play a very major role in the freedom movement and in free India. Now, very soon this movement split into two. They were the moderates, men of great capacity, Dadabhai Naoroji, Sir Firoz Mehta, Gopal Krishna Gokhale, who Gandhiji said was his guru. They were the moderates. They passed resolutions that they wanted the British to give them freedom gradually and bring them into freedom. The other group were known as the extremists. And they were people who were in a hurry. They were not prepared to wait for the kripa of the British to give them freedom. They were the ones who were the extremists, and they were led by Bal Gangadhar Tilak, Bipin Chandra Pal, Lala Lajpat Rai, and Shri Aurobindo. So that is where I would like to place Shri Aurobindo in the context of our historical. I come now more directly to him. But before I begin talking about him, I think you should know where he is coming from. He was the fiery leader of the extremists in the Congress. And when the opportunity came in 1905, Lord Curzon, then Viceroy, decided to partition Bengal. Became known as Banga Banga, the partition of Bengal. And there was a tremendous agitation against that. And in that agitation, Sri Aurobindo left his job, I'll come to that, and shone like a meteor for 5 years, and then disappeared pretty much. Okay. Now let's come to Sri Aurobindo particularly. He was born, his Janma Bhumi was Calcutta, 1872. At the age of 7, he was sent to England for studies. So from the age of 7 to the age of 21, 14 years, he studied English. He went to grammar school, which is what I suppose you would call primary school. Then he went to middle school. Then he went to King's College, Cambridge, where he won all the prizes for Latin and Greek. He was an absolutely brilliant scholar. He was in great difficulty there financially, but he and his two brothers went there. So his Janma Bhumi was Calcutta, his Shiksha Bhumi was England. And it was while he was in England that he began being influenced by the freedom movements in Ireland and in Italy. The Irish freedom movement, which was at that time against the British, and the Risorgimento in Italy with Garibaldi and Mazzini and those great leaders, they greatly influenced him. And he began getting his revolutionary ideas even when he was in England. Although his father had sent him to England really because he thought he'd do better there as far as his attitudes were concerned. Now, very interesting, 1893 is very significant here. 1893, Gandhiji sailed from London to South Africa. Vivekananda sailed from India to New York, and Sri Aurobindo sailed from London back to India. Maharaja Sayajirao Gaikwad, Maharaja Baroda, was a very far-sighted man. He was the one who patronized Dr. Ambedkar. Otherwise, Ambedkar would not have been known without the scholarship and support of the Maharaj. He visited England in 1893 and immediately saw that this young man who had just completed his studies. Luckily, he appeared for the ICS examination, but of course he passed. Luckily, he did not appear for the riding examination. Otherwise, he would have ended up as Deputy Commissioner of Gurgaon. Actually, we were saved from that terrible thing, and Gaikwad got him immediately, took him into his life. So he became, first of all, he was private secretary to the Maharaja and helped him with his correspondence and all. Then he became a lecturer in the Baroda College. And so Baroda, from 1893 to 1905, for 12 years, his sadhana bhumi was Baroda. He was, on the one hand, ostensibly a professor of English and teaching, but inwardly, he had begun his contacts with the revolution, both in Maharashtra and in Bengal. So that period was when he was maturing. He learned Sanskrit. He didn't learn any Sanskrit in England. He learned it in UK. He learned Bengali, and he was in touch with Yogi Lele. He had various spiritual experiences. And then in 1905, as I said, when the partition of Bengal took place, he resigned from Baroda, went to Calcutta, and if you read his editorials in the Karma Yogin and the Bande Mataram today, even today, I mean, the blood will race faster in your veins. He's a master of the English language. I don't think any other Indian has mastered the English language to the extent that Sri Aurobindo did. He wrote his editorials. He was arrested in 1907 in the Alipur bomb conspiracy case. A bomb was thrown to an English woman and his daughter was unfortunately killed. He was arrested. He was in jail in Alipur, jail. And it was in jail that he had his first major spiritual revelation. And his first spiritual revelation, Raji, interest you, was Krishna. He saw Krishna everywhere. in the judge, in the jury, in the fellow convicts, in the guard, everywhere he looked, he saw Krishna. So that was his first major spiritual experience that he had. He was acquitted. Why he was acquitted, I can't understand. I've studied the files, and he was clearly guilty. One explanation is that there was a divine force behind him. The other explanation is that the judge, Justice Beechcroft, was at college with him in Cambridge. I do not know which one to accept, but the fact of the matter is that he was acquitted. But even though he was acquitted, the British had called him the most dangerous man in India. And mind you, all of this is long before Gandhiji came on the scene. You see, we tend to look upon our freedom movement only beginning with Gandhiji onwards. But all of this happened Gandhiji only came in 1920. All this is happening in 1905. So it's 15 years before Gandhiji came. So after he was released, he was under a scanner and all. And at that time, he then realized that whatever he had to do for the freedom movement was over, that his task lay in generating spiritual power to free India. Their obsession was to free India from foreign. If you read his writings, my PhD thesis, Prophet of International, is on Sri Aurobindo's political thought. It's very, very interesting what he wrote. He had a total holistic view of the movement, but ultimately, Sister Nivedita warned him that he was again going to be arrested pretty soon. And he said, if you want to carry on your sadhana, you better leave Calcutta because you will not be able to, they won't let you stay. So he went first, he had an Adesh, he went to Chandranagar, or Chandranagar as they called it, which was then a French colony. And from there he went to Pondicherry. And then he reached Pondicherry in 1910, and then for 40 years he lived in Pondicherry until he passed. It was during those 40 years that he brought out those remarkable books, the astounding books. His collected works are, 30 volumes, The Life Divine, The Human Cycle, The Synthesis of Yoga, The Great Poem Savitri, all of those books at that time he brought out and carried in his son. So when he passed away, luckily somebody asked him for a message. And he gave a message at Andhra University. And that is the message that we call the 5 Dreams of Sri Aurobindo, which I will go through one for one. I must point out that although he was known as a great yogi, he never lost his interest in politics, in culture, in social change, in economic transformation. In some ways, it's the way that Rabindranath Tagore's poetry has overshadowed his other writings on humanism with excellent speeches. Similarly, Sri Aurobindo's yogic greatness and his great books have overshadowed the fact that he followed Indian politics very closely. In fact, in 1942, you may have read that the Cripps Commission came to India. So Stafford Cripps was sent to try and Sri Aurobindo broke his silence and wrote to the Congress to say, please accept the Cripps mission. This is the last chance to save India's unity. In fact, the Congress did exactly the opposite. It rejected it, launched the Quit India movement. They all were thrown into jail. Muhammad Ali Jinnah came forward and said, I am. So the day the Quit India movement was launched, partition in a way became inevitable. Because then you left the field free for the Muslim League and Jinnah. So by the time that agitation was over and it came in those years, that had already been covered. But I just wanted to say that Sri Aurobindo was very, very interested in, and 15th of August, mind you, happens to be his birthday. It was also the formal end of World War II, with the Japanese Emperor's broadcast. And it was for Christians the day of the Assumption of the Virgin Mary. So these 5 dreams represent in a way his final message, and I will take them one by one and try and analyze them and see how far they've been fulfilled and how far they've not been. I'll start. August 15th is the birthday of Free India. It marks for her the end of an old era and the beginning of a new age. But we can also make it by our life and acts as a free nation an important date in a new age opening for the whole world for the political, social, cultural and spiritual future of humanity. August 15th is my own birthday, and it is naturally gratifying to me that it should have assumed this vast significance. I take this coincidence not as a fortuitous accident, but as the sanction and seal of the divine force that guides my steps on the work with which I began life, and beginning of its full fruition. Indeed, on this day, I can watch almost all the world movements which I hope to see fulfilled in my lifetime, because then they look like impracticable dreams arriving at fruition or on their way to achievement. In all these movements, Free India may well play a large and leading part. But the first of these dreams was a revolutionary movement that would create a free and united India. India today is free, but she has not achieved unity. At one moment, it almost seemed as if in the very act of liberation, she would fall back into the chaos of separate states which preceded the British conquest. But fortunately, it now seems probable that this danger will be averted and a large and powerful, though not yet complete union will be established. Mind you, this is the 15th of August, when the Indian states were still separate. It is only Sardar Patel who later was able to integrate all these 550 states. But he said, it now seems probable that this danger will be averted and a large and powerful, though not yet complete union will be established. Also, the wisely drastic policy of the Constituent Assembly has made it probable that the problem of the depressed classes will be solved without schism or fission. You remember there was this demand for a separate state country for the Dalits, and then there was the Gandhiji's last fast and the Ambedkar Gandhi's dream. But the old communal division into Hindus and Muslims seems now to have hardened into a permanent political division of the country. It is to be hoped that this settled fact will not be accepted as settled forever, or as anything more than a temporary experience. But if it lasts, India may be seriously weakened, even crippled. Civil strife may remain always possible, possibly even a new invasion and a foreign conquest. India's internal development and prosperity may be impeded, her position among the nations weakened, her destiny impaired or even frustrated. This must not be. The partition must go. Let us hope that it may come about naturally by an increasing recognition of the necessity not only of peace and concord, but of common action, by the practice of common action and the creation of means for that purpose. In this way, unity may finally come about under whatever form. The exact form may have a pragmatic, but not a fundamental importance. But by whatever means, in whatever way, the division must go, unity must and will be achieved, for it is necessary for the greatness of India's future. That is his first dream. That has not been fulfilled. What happened actually 25 years after partition, Pakistan broke into Bangladesh and Pakistan. And then when SARC was set up, I would say, I had hoped, still hope, that one day perhaps SARC could become a sort of a unity. Because any kind of political unity between India and Pakistan is out of the question, or Bangladesh. But if we could have a structure like the European Union, where so many different states with so many different languages and currencies and all would pool their resources and become a single unit, that to my mind was the closest that we will ever get to see Aurobindo's dream of unity, in my personal view. But that also now doesn't seem to be very much on the horizon yet. SARC has in fact collapsed, it has imploded. And I just saw in the papers yesterday that even next year's SARC is not likely to be there. But one can only hope that ultimately better sense will prevail, and that the government of Pakistan will realize at last that an attitude of perpetual hostility and enmity against India is not in their national interest. Because what is happening is, Pakistan itself is now getting denuded and getting dangerously weak. Because of what they are doing, as Hillary Clinton said, if you follow snakes in your backyard, they're bound to bite you one day. All the terrorist organizations that they have encouraged are now beginning to attract them. It is true that Pakistan has been a major victim of terrorism, created by themselves, not by terrorism from outside. So maybe a day will come when they will realize कि भाई हमेशा दुश्मनी करने से कोई बात, वो शेर है ना शिकरी बदायूनी का, हर चीज नहीं है मरकज पर, एक जरा इधर एक जरा उधर, नफरत से ना देखो दुश्मन को, शायद वो मोहब्बत कर रहे। कि पाकिस्तान मोहब्बत करेगा तब जाके इंडिया की ये साल की यूनिटी चलेगी, otherwise I'm afraid this first dream is not mere realization. Now the second dream was for a resurgence and liberation of the peoples of Asia and a return to a great role in the progress of human civilization. Asia has arisen. Large parts are now quite free or are at this moment being liberated. Its other still subject or partly subject parts are moving through whatever struggles towards freedom. Only a little has to be done, and that will be done today or tomorrow. Where India has a part to play and has already begun to play it with an energy and ability which indicates the measure of her possibilities and the place she can take in the Council of the Nation. It's a very interesting point. At that time, many countries in Asia were still under the colonial rule. But within 10 years of India achieving freedom, dozens of countries in Asia and in Africa had achieved their freedom. It was as it were that the bulwark of colonialism had been breached by India, the largest colonial economy being and there was a struggle in Indonesia, it was Sukarno, and the whole of the stories of how this happened. I don't have to go into that. But in fact, Asia did arise, and today more or less, I think it is entirely free of any Western domination. Except for the American invasion of Iraq, which also is not finished. There's something wrong with the mic. Somebody's just trying to get into the action. Anyhow, so this one, I think, this dream, because the ghostly voices coming from that, some supplemental manifestation. I'll talk about that later. So on this second dream, I think that Aurobindo was right on. Asia has arisen. India played a major role. The whole decolonization movement, whether to South Africa with the Northern movement, India played a major leading role in this, and he is appreciated. The third dream was a world union forming the outer basis of a fairer, brighter, and nobler life. First dream was India, the second dream was Asia, the third dream was a world union for all mankind. The unification of the human world is underway. There is an imperfect initiation organized for struggling against tremendous difficulty. But the momentum is there, and it must inevitably increase and conquer. He didn't know then about all these technological breakthroughs that state increased. But he realized that there was some power impelling humanity towards unity. Here too, India has begun to play a prominent part. And if she can develop that larger statesmanship, which is not limited by the present facts and immediate possibilities, but looks into the future and brings it nearer, her presence may make all the difference between a slow and timid and a bold and swift development. Here's an ominous sentence now. A catastrophe may intervene and interrupt or destroy what is being done. What with Trump there, and there's another unbalanced young man, what's his name? Kim. So Kim and Trump के बीच में एक catastrophe आ सकता है any time. So maybe that's what he's hinting at. So he says clearly, a catastrophe may intervene and interrupt or destroy what is being done. Even then the final result is sure. For unification is a necessity of nature, an inevitable movement. Its necessity for the nations is also clear. For without it, the freedom of the small nations may be at any moment in peril, and the life even of the large and powerful nations insecure. Unification is therefore to the interest of all, and only human imbecility and stupid selfishness can prevent it. Never underestimate human imbecility. But these cannot stand forever against the necessity of nature and the divine will. But an outward basis is not enough. There must grow up an international spirit and outlook. International forums and institutions must appear. Perhaps such developments as dual or multilateral citizenship, willed interchange or voluntary fusion of cultures. Nationalism will have fulfilled itself and lost its militancy, and would no longer find these things incompatible with self-preservation and integrality of its outlook. A new spirit of oneness will take hold of the human race. A very, very significant thing. Sri Aurobindo was the fiery prophet of Indian nationalism. His whole political thought was revolving around treaty. But by the time he moved 40 years into politics, he realized that nationalism was not the final answer. If you recall, Rabindranath Tagore also said that nationalism was not the final answer. Nationalism is something which has at some point in time to be transcended. And he talks about international forms. For example, the United Nations was formed in 1945, just 5 years before. Unfortunately, the United Nations is frozen in time, so that it reflects only the victors of the Second World War. And in Security Council, half of humanity is not represented. India is not there, Japan is not there, Germany is not there, Brazil is not there, no African country. So the United Nations is useful, but it is unfortunately frozen. Now, I've been India's representative to UNESCO. UNESCO is more democratic, it is all the nations. And they are also doing. So lots of international organizations have come up. WHO, the World Health Organization, ILO, the Labour Organization, and lots of very good work is being done. But the broader movement towards globalization, which we thought was developing in the last quarter of the 20th century, seems to have now been reversed. We used to go around in the 90s, I remember, talking about the glories of globalization, how nationalisms are going to gradually disappear, how we're all going to become one, and so on, and quoting chapter and verse. What has happened in recent years? Reversal against globalism. And that, I would say, is the result of 3 black swan events. I don't know if anyone here knows what a black swan event is. A black swan event is defined as a totally unexpected event with momentous consequences. There's a book called The Black Swan, you should read that. It was all about what somebody said there can never be a black swan. Swans are always white. And then somebody said, no, I've seen a black swan somewhere in Norway or something. So around that they built this concept of a black swan event. Totally unexpected, momentous consequences. And 3 black swan events have really put a break, shall we say, I hope temporarily, upon the process of globalization. First was America's invasion of Iraq, which was totally unexpected. It killed 1 million people and created continuing turmoil in huge parts of the world. The second was Brexit. Nobody thought that what we know as the nation of shopkeepers, the British, who were very shrewd and very mature, would suddenly decide to break away from the European Union. That has thrown the whole of Europe into turmoil. Everybody is rethinking their positions about these multinational organizations. That was totally understood. Nobody knew that would happen. And Cameron, for some weird reason, ordered a referendum, which he thought he'd win. He lost. Theresa May, who called her election, which she thought she'd win, she lost. So the whole Europe now is in some kind of a limbo. We're not sure what's it. And the third black swan event was Trump. Turk कहते ना Trump को, that Trump जो आया ना, Trump, who would have thought that a man like Trump, known for his misogyny and his outrageous remarks about women and his extraordinarily reactionary and revanchist attitude, who would have thought that a country like the United States, which sort of prides itself on being the longest democracy and so on, would elect a man like Trump? I mean, if there was a black swan event, that was it. So these 3 black swan events, invasion of Iraq, Brexit, and Trump, between them, have thrown the whole developing global order into chaos. So whether, as Sri Aurobindo writes, nationalism will have fulfilled itself and lost its militancy, and would no longer find these things incompatible with self-preservation and the integrality of its outlook, a new spirit of oneness will take hold of the human race. Unfortunately, we do not see that spirit here. We do not see the spirit of oneness, which the Upanishads talk about. Ekatvam anupashyate. It means we always talk about he who sees himself in all beings and sees all beings in himself. For him there is no feeling. Ekatvam anupashyate. We see the oneness. Ishavasyavidam sarvam yakinjit. The whole philosophy of the Upanishad revolves around the oneness of the human race and of the divine power that permeates. But that, I'm afraid, now is not happening. We have having very strong nationalistic leaders abroad, Putin in Russia, Xi Jinping in China, Erdogan in Turkey, Aurobindo in India, and the strongly powerful nationalistic leaders have risen. So apart from the softer people like Jawaharlal Nehru who talked about internationalism and Barack Obama who talked about it, they all seem to have gone into the background. Now, so where is this new spirit of oneness? This is a catastrophe may have to intervene, I do not know. But at present, I must say, we are not. So that's the third dream. Another dream. Fourth. First dream, remember, was India's freedom and unity. Number 2 was Asia's rising. Number 3 was world union. Number 4. Another dream, the spiritual gift of India to the world has already begun. India's spirituality is entering Europe and America in ever increasing measure. That movement will grow. Amid the disasters of the time, more and more eyes are turning to her with hope, and there is even an increasing resort not only to her teachings but to her psychic and spiritual practice. This is very true. What Swami Vivekananda began in 1893 has now taken root. All the great gurus, all the missions, the Ramakrishna mission, the Chinmaya mission, the Ganesh Buddha, all of them now, yoga has become now. Yoga is the greatest gift of India to the world. It's become a world phenomenon. We now have an international day of yoga. So when he talks about what to a psychic and spiritual practice, yoga, meditation is a gift, as it were, of India. Both the Hindu and the Buddhists. The Buddhists also, of course, remember, rose from India. So I think on this dream, he's going on. His dream on Asia and his dream on spiritual practices is okay. Indian unity, question mark. Human unity, I'm afraid, still question mark. 5. The final dream was a step in evolution which would raise man to a higher and larger consciousness and begin the solution of the problems which have perplexed and vexed him since he first began to think and dream of individual perfection in a perfect society. This is still a personal hope and an ideal which has begun to take hold both in India and in the West on forward-looking matters. The difficulties in the way are more formidable than any other field of endeavor, but difficulties were made to be overcome. Here too, if this evolution is to take place, since it must proceed through growth of the spirit and the inner consciousness, the initiative can come from India, and although the scope must be universal, the central movement may be first. Now this is its philosophy, and I have to stop here very briefly and try and explain to you what is the basic Sri Aurobindo's philosophy. Sri Aurobindo was an evolutionary philosopher. He held that evolution is a law of nature, and in the same way as we have developed from mineral to vegetable to amphibian, animal to the human race, he says there is no reason to believe that evolution has completed itself in the human race. Human race is only is still a work in progress, a sort of a halfway house between the animal and the divine. And he says that if we continue the process of evolution, our consciousness will evolve into higher and higher levels. We may not change our form, but our consciousness will develop to higher and higher levels. And that process of evolution is what he called the integral yoga. His integral yoga combines something I talked about earlier, the Jnana yoga, the way of the mind, way of wisdom, the Bhakti yoga, the way of the heart, the way of devotion, the Karma yoga, the way of works, the way of the arms, the Raja yoga, the way of the breath, the way of spiritual practices. He combines all of these and sets before his disciples the ideal of a leap in consciousness. He says for the first time, with the human race, we have a being that is self-conscious. Otherwise, everybody was there, all the billions and billions of insects and animals and birds and all were there. They were not self-conscious, they knew that they were there. But human beings for the first time can look upon themselves. Like for the first time we saw the photograph of planet Earth. Nobody before had seen it. No guru, nobody had seen it. That great photograph, NASA photograph of planet Earth taken from outer space. First time we've seen it. Our generation was lucky. So he says you can look into yourself and we can now cooperate with the evolutionary force. This is whereas previously evolution was blind and had to happen without any, the animals didn't do anything very much to go into, the birds didn't come, they went through the natural processes. Now, as human beings, we can cooperate with the processes of evolution. And by doing that, we can hasten evolution. That is his basic premise when he talks about this. I wanted to explain that, otherwise it would not make sense. There are many, his philosophy is very, very intricate, and there's the overmind, the supermind. I'm not going into the details. I'm just pointing out the possibility of evolution to a higher level of consciousness and for us to cooperate in that process of evolution. He says that the final step was a step in evolution which would raise man to a higher and larger consciousness and begin the solutions of the problems which have perplexed him since he first began to think, to dream of individual perfection and a perfect society. Then he ends the whole thing by saying, such is the content that I put into this date of India's liberation. Whether or how far this hope will be justified depends upon the new and free India. I think it's an extraordinary statement for a man who began his life as a fiery nationalist, who lived for 40 years as a yogi in Pondicherry. For him, at the end of his life, to dwell not only on the religious or so-called specific, but to realize how political development and economic development is going to impact the future of the human race. And he was always, that was always his dream. In a letter to his, to Sri Aurobindo, he wrote many letters. He said, I quote that, in 1935 he wrote, I am seeking to bring some principle of inner truth, light, harmony, peace into the earth's consciousness. I see it above and know what it is. I feel it ever gleaming down on my consciousness from above, and I am seeking to make it possible for it to take up the whole being into its own native power, instead of the nature of man continuing to remain in half light, half dark. I believe the descent of this truth opening is the way to development of divine consciousness. This has to be the final sense of Earth's evolution. So there he is. It is very interesting how he puts it. Now, what will happen in the future? Let me close now with an interesting parallel. Arthur Koestler, a European, Middle European philosopher, had a thesis that man is a species programmed for self-destruction because of an engineering defect in the cortex, whereby the thinking and the feeling elements are not adequately linked. As a result of which we know what we should do, but we don't do it. Now we know what we should do, humanity knows what it should do about pollution, it's not doing it. As Duryodhan says in the Mahabharata, Janami dharmam, me pravritti, janami adharmam, me nivritti. I know what is right, but I am not attracted to it. I know what is wrong, but I am attracted. So this is, according to Koestler, this is as a result of an imperfect development of the human brain. And that therefore, sooner or later, humanity is bound to self-destruct. It is a creature programmed for self-destruction. Sri Aurobindo, on the contrary, says that man is a creature for evolution, programmed for evolution. The destiny of man lies in further evolution of consciousness. So here you have two widely different scenarios. Koestler, man programmed for self-destruction, and Sri Aurobindo, man programmed for spiritual evolution. Now the jury is still out. Nobody knows what will happen. But I'll end with a somewhat enigmatic limerick. You know what a limerick is? A limerick is an amusing 5-line, 5-stanza poem which sums up the situation. It says, God's plan made a hopeful beginning, but man spoiled his chances by sinning. We know that the story will end in God's glory, but at present the other side is winning. Thank you.